Oh, thanks.
Balance is healthy. Balance is effective. Balance is key. Not so in Scotland, I'm afraid. Mother Nature in Scotland has a different logic. She wants to drown us in rain. I don't think we're close to experiencing biblical rain just yet. However, waterproofs have become a staple in my closet. A younger Claudia would be appalled knowing this. Hi friends, and welcome. And please note that visiting Scotland during its rainy season is no joke. It's not meant for the weak. I still make the mistake of trusting my weather app and then having to deal with wet hair as I'm waiting for a steamy cup of peppermint tea. After all these years, and yet I still can't figure out the Scottish weather. Maybe I'll get it right after another 5 years. As you can see, Toby's spirits were not dampened by the weather. As we sit waiting for our warm meal at the Boathouse, which is a cafe in Glasgow, I was a little uncertain whether I would get to sketch outside. Was I prepared to sketch in the rain? No, but I wasn't going to give up that easy. I've done plenty of hill walking where my husband, Toby, and myself have been caught in heavy downpours along with somewhat dangerous winds, so I've acquired a lot of grit. Grit's an interesting word. To me, grit means that you're willing to get uncomfortable in order to reach a goal or a dream, that you have the fortitude to push yourself and continue to motivate yourself during the highs and lows. Grit sounds badass, and I hear it thrown around, especially in endurance sports. And while grit is helpful to have, I believe there needs to be trust for a person to build that grit on. That's the tricky bit, trust. Any form of trust can be challenging. Self-trust has been one of the hardest things for me to learn and develop since I've spent most of my life trusting others and not myself. And then, of course, over time, I realized that trusting others with my authentic self and my dreams wasn't safe either. While my self-trust is slowly strengthening itself, the trust I choose to invest in others has become either stagnant or selective. My husband and I are soulmates. We are each other's best friend. But it took me time to let my goofy, affectionate, and cheesy self to break through the surface of my serious demeanor. As with anything, how does one get better with trusting others? Practice, right? I'll have to admit though, for as much as I try, I don't think I can ever trust the Scottish weather. Sure, we were all nice and warm from our lovely meal at the Boathouse, but that didn't last long. The day was drizzly, and instead of being able to wander around the pond and find a more secluded spot for my sketch, I decided to just go with what you see in front of you, not far from the white building of the cafe. Regardless, I think the sketch was gonna be fun to create. Sure, we were slowly getting more wet by the minute and a little cold. These swans, on the other hand, were having a midday snooze in the rain and could care less about the gray of the day. This was the first time I would be forced to sketch standing up. The bench was too wet. In all honesty, holding everything didn't add much complexity to the sketching process. My sweet boy Toby was on watch to ensure no one would disturb me. How would I get anything done without my Toby at my side? The love Toby gives out to his family is as infinite as the universe. The rain began to pick up, and I noticed that my lines were not showing up on my sketching pad as I moved my pen around. The page was becoming too wet. I attempted to get an overall outline of the scene, but there was no point. Nothing was showing up. We made the executive decision to pack up. I did take a pic though to use as a reference, and my stepdaughter let me know that she also took a photo of the scene on her Kindle in case my pic wasn't clear enough. I had a backup from my backup. Friends, my family is amazing. The walk back to our van left me quite chilled. I needed to dry up as soon as we got home. Toby checked in to make sure I was warm enough. He was looking for some cuddles as well. Being on the couch with my purple towel wrapped around me reminds me of my sister's hospitality. Offering a hot towel was on the list of items she would list when I would sleep over her house. I would have a little laugh for being offered a comfort that felt slightly aristocratic. At this point, it looks like gray skies are sticking around for the rest of the day. I guess Toby was sensing my little annoyance and proceeded to remind me that I shouldn't take the change of plans too seriously. Or at least that's how I interpreted his little taps. Just when I was thinking about making myself a cup of tea, my husband appears with a piping hot mug of more peppermint tea. I can always count on David for a quick pick-me-up. It's interesting how we've gone from being complete strangers from different worlds, cultures, experiences, to being each other's most trusted source of love. Trust requires vulnerability. While I decided to be vulnerable with and to David, I can't say that I'm okay with putting it into practice regularly. And that brings me back to my art journey. I'm at the beginning of entrusting my art education to an artist that I personally don't know, and I don't know whether his approach to art will guide me in the right direction. It's a vulnerability that I have to be okay with giving up. And friends, because I've been hurt by professionals that I've chosen to enter my inner circle of trust, I am quite protective, even a little hard-headed in sharing my space. The risk of being let down or wasting my time sits heavy on my mind every day. Being on the losing end is not fun, and well, I'm still healing from past experiences. Despite all of this noise, I still have decided to trust again, because the need to move forward outweighs all this noise. Because I can't do this self-taught path on my own. Because I need the daily guidance and structure of a course. Because I need the reassurance of progression. Because I need help. The other day, I began a course titled Becoming an Artist with Toby Sketchloose, who is a sketch artist based in the UK. Toby Sketchloose is not only a kick-ass artist, his style of teaching is also great. He is so down to earth, friendly, he breaks down big concepts with ease, creates an inclusive environment, and his encouragement is keeping my spirits up. What more can you ask for from a teacher? The first day of his course focused on loose lines, which is a topic that I've been wanting more info on. As I sat through his lesson, my metaphorical light bulb lit up several times. To begin with, Toby went over supplies. While I've been color obsessed in terms of buying different mediums with all the color ranges, Toby emphasized the importance of buying a variety of fine liner pens and a nice mixed media sketchbook. He showed how different pen sizes create different textures and shapes. Each size really has its own character. I had never seen that comparison. I had no idea that a 0.05 millimeter pen existed for drawing. It's the smallest pen tip I've ever seen. Here I was thinking that my two pens of 0.4 millimeters and 0.9 millimeters was enough, and that I should stock up on all the pastels instead. Don't get me wrong, Toby did recommend a color source. He suggested a watercolor set from Winsor & Newton, which I already had, along with watercolor brushes. Toby linked all the supplies to the Jackson's Art website, which is an art supplier, and it just so happens that it's the supplier that I've been using for all my art supplies already. So friends, buying more pens is on my agenda for next week. And instead of using sketch pads, I'm going to buckle down and buy a little sketchbook as well. For now, I'm using my 0.4 millimeter pen and my 0.9 millimeter pen to sketch from my reference photo. One of the tips that I am employing after sitting in on Toby's class is holding my pens higher from its tip. Toby explained that I shouldn't be holding my pens like a pencil. I'm not interested in realism, and neither is he. I'm interested in interpreting and sketching the world around me on a blank page. By holding the pen closer to its top, Toby clarified that this allows for less control and more fluidity, more loose lines. Friends, I can already confirm that this tip made such a difference as I was sketching the trees in my scene. Straight lines are boring, and Toby has a great appreciation for the imperfect and wonky, and I'm so here for it. The scene came together quite easily, and I kept having to remind myself that less is more. If you were to tune into any of Toby's classes, you would see that he doesn't use pencil in his sketch as a first step. He uses his ink pen from the very beginning to the very end. He doesn't even include pencils in his supply list. And so for this sketch, I ditched the pencil and used my pens only. Was I ready for it? No. But I'm trusting the process. Did I make mistakes with this approach? Of course I did. I embraced the mistakes, however, and made them part of the scene. I'll definitely be doing pen-only sketches from now on. Toby uses a lovely fountain pen for his sketches. I won't be buying one anytime soon, but I've been looking. I wrapped up my pen work before the timer went off, which caught me a bit off guard. That's never happened before. The watercolors came out next. I find it a little ridiculous that the medium I was least inclined to work with has become one that I'm really enjoying. Watercolors have previously made me nervous because I can't control the movement of the water all the time. It's like the wild child of mediums. It wasn't until I came across Toby's style that I became curious and willing to give it a go. I like how watercolors create colors, shades, and textures that I didn't think were possible. The color moves around on the page with your brush, but at times it keeps moving and fuses together with another color that's been a little too lonely on the page. Watching how water not only nourishes our body and our ecosystems, but helps us fill the world with art is unbelievably impressive. We are truly lucky to have this resource. I divided my water application into 2 rounds. The first round, I laid down kind of like the base layer. I painted the path, the pond, the grass, basically big features. Less is more was my mantra. I didn't want to overcomplicate anything. It's one of the reasons I used the bigger brush along with the smaller metallic one that came with my watercolor set. There is something so soothing in working with watercolors. Maybe it's the fact that I can't be rigid with my hand movements, or that the steady spread of color keeps me present, or maybe it's because water in general is a source of calm. I painted the houses in the background in colors that were nothing like houses in the reference photo. I needed the houses to pop more, and so I used some red. I think I made the right decision. The second round of watercolor application was more for the details, like the varying hues of the pond, the path, the branches of the trees, and the spring flowers. I had to use my tiny metallic brush for painting the flowers. I blended up some purple and minutely touched the page with my brush. For the last 15 minutes, I came back in with my pens to liven up the scene and make specific details pop. I really enjoyed this step. My scene was reaching its full potential. Each line I was penning in now felt more confident. The finishing touches to the dreamy world I had created from my imagination were being laid down. I used my 0.9mm pen to give the houses a bolder look. Light and fine loose lines were added to the grass. On the other hand, the bushes in the background were more circular, uneven nonetheless, although the bushes in the reference photo were neatly trimmed. But then again, what's the fun in that? I almost forgot to add the faint outline of a bench. There were more benches in the reference photo, but I decided to only pen one in. That's what I love about sketching. One gets to decide what makes the scene or not, because it's your world that you're creating. It's that freedom to build from the ground up that really lights my fire. And this feeling is another reason I find myself needing to continue to learn from Toby and to trust his teachings. It's important to have people in your life that understand you and your endeavors and only want to strengthen your skill set to help you arrive and shine brightly. In the past, I believed that proper art was only realism on a canvas. And well, I wasn't inclined to draw reality as is. I wanted to be expressive with color and lines to create my version of beauty, influenced by my culture, my travels, my relationships, using color and lines in ways that have never captured the whimsical tones of my life. Friends, this is your push to trust people who lift you up. With my husband at my side cheering me on and Toby online teaching me all about sketching, I think I've put together a superb team. So get that team together and start that passion project that you've been postponing. Friends, thank you for the company on this sketch. I'm happy with how it came out, and even more happy that you joined me on demystifying what art can be. See you next week, friends.